Welcome to the Grit and Growth Podcast, where we are in the pursuit of excellence in both sport and life. My name is Justin Simpkins, Director of Prairie Hockey Academy.
And I'm Shane Sowden, Head Men's Basketball Coach at Briarcrest College.
Well, that was a great interview today with Angus Reid. Shane, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Yeah, Justin, Angus was great, brought a ton of energy, and really enjoyed this one.
With us today on the podcast was Angus Reid, author, speaker, coach, husband and father, two-time Grey Cup champion as an offensive lineman with the BC Lions, CFL All-Star. And, Angus just brought a lot of truths from his first book called Thank You, Coach. He talked a little bit about his next book, Teenager. There's a lot of takeaways.
What I took away was Angus reminded me, and I think we all need reminding sometimes, of why I coach, what's my purpose, and just how big of a role I can play in my players' lives, helping them become the men they need to and want to become. And so, yeah, so many different tidbits just learned from his journey from a player into the professional ranks. And so really enjoyed this one, Justin.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of underdog type of story pieces that people will pull from this and relate to his resiliency, his story about almost, that near-death experience, that grade 8-9 window, and just that commitment of never going to quit on something again in my life. And I don't know, I just think people are really going to enjoy it. So, without any further ado, I just want you to enjoy How Good Do You Want to Be with Angus Reid today. Angus Reid, welcome to the Grit and Growth Podcast. We have been expectingly awaiting this opportunity to interview you and have you join us. The energy you bring, the stories that you have, the books that you've written. I know our listeners are excited about today's episode.
Well, it's an honor to be here. I really, really, really appreciate the invite.
First off, some people might know your name. I'm in Saskatchewan, home of the Rough Riders, and we never really liked the BC Lions a whole lot, or the Argonauts, or anybody else, the Winnipeg Blue. Anything. So in the CFL world, Angus Reid, Angus, you have a name, a history there, two-time Grey Cup champion, CFL All-Star, and you had a great career. And so I kind of want to start a little bit about Angus Reid, yourself, where you grew up, how that career happened, your pursuit in sport. And really, maybe that's the foundation of Thank You, Coach, your first book.
Yeah, sure. I was maybe like a lot of kids, or maybe not like a lot of kids. I grew up loving sports. I think I had a very strong influence in the household. So again, I was fortunate that I grew up in a house that was a loving family, mom and dad the whole time. They're still married, 55 years later. But I'm one of 6 kids. I have 4 older brothers, and they all played sports. They particularly played school sports. So my mom had 4 at the age of 3. And then there were 6 years to me and 6 years to my little sister. So I was truly their little brother. So my childhood was really spent, I would say, basically 100% of my time in gyms, on fields, watching my brothers practice, play games, because that's just where the family was. So all I knew was sports. And I was really fortunate enough to have older brothers that were heroes to me. I wanted to be like them. I just wanted to do what they were doing. So I didn't have to find sports. I was sort of raised in it. And I think I was just fortunate that I really loved it. I wanted to be what I saw every day. And I was really lucky that my heroes were not just my brothers, but their teammates who were their friends. And I had that real, I guess it was a unique upbringing where I got to see locker rooms for high achievers that were teenagers that were good to me, that let me into that world. So right from the get-go, that's what I wanted. So I had clarity of what that looked like, and I had a real passion for it. So I was driven pretty young by something that I was always around, and I loved it.
Angus, take us through. So listened to a couple of your TED Talks, read your book, obviously watched you on TV. Just curious, were you a multi-sport athlete growing up? Really enjoyed hearing just your perspective, the family time, around the supper table. But were you a multi-sport athlete? When did you start focusing on football? And then really curious about your journey, through it to SFU, and then just as early on in your CFL career.
Yeah. So again, loved sports since I was a kid, like a lot of people. And we were a family that we participated in all school sports. I mean, we played community soccer too, but other than that, it was what the school had. So when it was football season, my brothers all played football. I was in elementary school, so I would play on the field beside them, pretend to be like them. But basketball was my first participation love, because it was the earliest school sport that you played. So I think probably fourth grade on, I was part of the basketball team, and my brothers played basketball too. We wrestled in elementary school. You did whatever was in season, and you loved it because for the most part, it was your same friends that did everything. And I know that's almost a bygone thing where all your buddies just played seasonal sports and we competed here, we competed there. And I still speak to the benefits of it. I think far more reaching than the sport biomechanics of, diverse physical abilities. I always thought the ability to put yourself in different environments consistently grows you as a person. And then as you get older, different people do segment to different sports. So, football people, you just don't have football friends. You know how to make friends with different types of people, and you're in the basketball world, or you're in the baseball world, or you're in the hockey world. And I always thought there was a great benefit to understanding what it's like to constantly thrive and enjoy different environments and not just get pigeonholed into one way of living and one way of communicating and one way of joking and one set of stories and one way of having humor. So I played everything, and my life really turned. It's not really in my talks or my books. When I got into the ninth grade, I tell the story a lot. I quit football in the eighth grade, by the way. So I had, because my brothers were so good. My oldest brother played for the BC Lions. He long snapped for about half a season. So I had real aspirations of like greatness. I was like 190 pounds in grade 7. Not well put together. Just a big portly kid that had a large ego because I had brothers that were really good, and I was around these great. So I just assumed I will be great, and I was physically really big. And I was terrible, and I go for grade 8 football, and it's really hard. And there's this equipment that doesn't fit right, and all of a sudden I'm not a superstar, and kids are good. And like a lot of kids, I fell to, this is no good. This is too hard. I'm just going to quit. And I look back on it, and it's shocking my mom let me do it, but I put a sob story out there and felt sorry for myself, and I kind of drifted. So eighth grade, I kind of drifted in basketball. I still played, but I wasn't as good as I used to be because all of a sudden people are getting good. And I'm just this kind of pudgy kid that was better when I was younger because I loved it and I was bigger than kids. And now there was talent. And then in the ninth grade, and this is a real defining part of my life, my appendix blew in the ninth grade, and I didn't tell anybody because I around a family raised with tough athletes and strong individuals. I'm a little brother that's already quit football. I don't want to be a wimp. So I hid from my family. I didn't know. I just thought I had a real bad stomach ache. I thought I tore a muscle. A few days go on, right? I'm hiding in my room. But I don't want to be a wimp. I don't want to have complaining about a stomach ache. And long story short, I think it was the 6th day, and I'm completely septic. I should have died. I finally can't hide anymore. My sister goes and tells my mom something's really wrong with Angus. He's been crying, and they take me right to the hospital. Again, I'll compress this really short, but I was in Richmond General. They moved me to Children's Hospital. I was raised Catholic. I was at the point last rites were read. Like they weren't gonna be able to do anything. I should be dead. I should not be here this day. And my life really got it to a level where there was a critical moment that I was going to throw in the towel on myself. I told my mom, like, I'm closing my eyes. I can't do this anymore. We're 6 weeks into Children's Hospital. They got the IV drip. They're just hoping I make it. And I'll never forget that night. She wouldn't let me. She made me get up. She made me walk with her. She dragged me around, and she would never let me quit on myself. And I remember from that moment forward, I realized no matter what I do, I will never, ever, ever give up again. I will never, ever quit. And I also learned a valuable lesson, and I speak to this in the next book I'm writing for kids, is life can be really hard, and you can't be so stubborn as to not ask for help. And throwing in the towel seems easier than maybe submitting to checking your ego and saying, look, I need some support here. I don't know how I'm going to make it. And you lean on people to get through those tough times, to get through. And you realize you can, but you get the support. Now, I'll never forget, I came back to school, and all of a sudden I was like 80 pounds lighter. I was a skinny guy, which sounded great, but I was lost. In grade 9, I didn't play any sports. I had no confidence in where I fit in. I wasn't going to quit on myself, but I didn't have direction or courage or confidence anymore. So everyone moved, grade 9, people gap up. Athletes really become athletes, and smart kids become smarter, and you kind of find your group, right? And I was in a hospital for most of that time, and I came back, and I'd known sports, and I didn't play. 10th grade, I didn't play any sports in 10th grade. I played none. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, but you start lacking courage because all of a sudden the athletes become better and better. And you're like, well, I can't play sports now. And I spoke about it in my TEDx talk on why we need high school football. I mean, I was fortunate football. The coaches did know who I was at school because my brothers. And they, you want to come out? I'm like, I can't play grade 11. Like, I can't show up senior football. I've never played. I quit in grade 8. I was there for 5 days. That was a lifetime ago. And I finally made that courageous effort that let's do this. I'm doing nothing. I need to do something. Let's commit to something. And so I was an athlete my whole life up till 8th grade, whatever life that is, right? It's all I knew when I was a kid. And then it was gone. And I had to make a decision to come back to it. And it saved me as a person because I was never going to quit on myself, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I didn't have the courage to take on life of my own. So I joined a team again. And that's when I really began to learn all the lessons that, again, Thank You Coach goes to, but I speak a lot on about my high school coaches, where they started structuring your day and started challenging you with goals. And you started having reason and purpose to your life. You started having a reason to get up and a reason to do your homework and a reason now to exercise and a reason to eat better because you want to get somewhere. And that's when I really learned you can become whatever you're willing to dedicate yourself to and to commit to and to actually do. And then you start learning on coaches and you start making better friends and you start hanging around people that are doing this. And then you start building your life around this world where all you're doing is surrounding yourself with things that are helping you get to where you want to get to. And then it lit like a match. And I was never the superstar on my team, even in high school, but I got better every day because I just committed to doing it. And I'm going to do this no matter what. And I was a bench warmer till almost the back end of my season, but every day get a little bit better. And that reminds you that you can get better. So what happens if I show up tomorrow and keep pouring it in? And my high school career progressed like that. By my senior year, I'm pretty good. I'm not a blue chip star. I'm not anything outrageously tall or outrageously big. I'm just a kid that's trying really hard. And Simon Fraser gives me a local scholarship, really the only scholarship offer I had. I'm a Vancouver kid. That was a local school. So I want to keep getting better. Here's an opportunity. I didn't poo-poo that I didn't have big offers or multiple offers. I look at what I have, and that's where I want to go. So let's take it and bring all you got to it. And my college career has all kinds of ups and downs too. It's too long to get into this, but really, after that moment in the hospital, I made a decision that whatever I didn't know what I was going to do. Grade 9 I did nothing, grade 10, but I knew when I'm going to do something now, I'm never going to quit on myself again. And then I learned those valuable lessons of surrounding yourself with people that are beneficial to you, that are making you more of what you want to become. Not just going to be nice to you, not just going to be cool with you, are actually going to support you becoming what you want to become. And that can be challenging some days, and it can be not what you want to hear. And you keep looking, are the people and the environments I'm putting myself in every day supportive of where I'm trying to get to? And I think the secret of my life has been not any natural talent, not anything that anyone doesn't have access to. It was the decision to never quit on yourself, and the realization it's going to take a lot of things to be supportive of you, and you get to pick those. You're choosing where you're putting yourself. You're choosing who you're surrounding yourself with. And then you start auditing, is it helping? And you start looking for more of those things. And we can get into the rest of my career, but that was really formed who I was. And then, life gets harder. Yeah. But anyways.
So you wrote a book called Thank You Coach, but it goes without saying that Thank You Mom is a big statement that goes back to that moment in your life where she didn't give up on you, and that really catapulted you to that spot that you're not going to give up on yourself ever again. And I know that it's detailed in Thank You Coach and some of your TED Talks that our listeners can read or talk about. But I mean, fascinating stats, right? Here you are as an offensive lineman. You go on to play professional, and like the stats are not in your favor. If we can, right? Your shoe size, your hand size, your arms, your wingspan, all that stuff. These are the big stats that anybody that's a football fan would understand from combines and things like that when they're scouting offensive linemen. But you went on. You were a draft pick in the CFL. You to the Toronto Argonauts. You had a bit of a stint there, I think, with Montreal for a bit, and then fast forwarding a little bit, you arrive in BC, and I think this is where Thank You Coach comes into play, and I know it impacted me the first time you told that story. So tell me a little bit about that first workout, that first day you get to meet Coach Dan, who the book is written about.
Yeah. And so a bit of background, which you touched on, I was drafted. Again, I was not the person that football is saying, this is what we want. But I'd learned early in my life that when I'm going to commit to something, I'm going to keep finding ways. I'm going to keep finding ways. And to the listeners out there, I feel very confident that if you are certain with that mindset, the ways will find you also. Like you keep looking for answers, you'll find answers. You keep looking for problems, you know what you're going to find. You're going to find problems. You keep reminding yourself why you can't make it. You're not going to make it. So I kept slogging forward. And again, drafted by Toronto. They cut me. I begged my way on Montreal's practice roster. Like, I'm taking the long road to success. But everything I saw was an opportunity to move forward, not a reason why I won't make it. And so I end up with the Lions, and I'm heading into my third year, and I really haven't done much my first 2 years. I've been on practice rosters, moved around, have no real tape to prove that I belong here. And we had a whole new organizational change. So, any coach out there, any player can realize when there's a whole shift of a whole new coaching staff that comes in, particularly when you're not a winning team to begin with, they're going to look at their assets and say, well, what am I here with? And they have opportunities now to improve their assets. And in sports, the players are most of your assets. And I really thought my career was over. Because they look at me and, the kid's barely 6'1", which we offensive line wise, you want 6'4", you want 6'5", short arms, small hands. I was not going, okay, this is a guy that's going to play. And I didn't have film to prove I could. And then I meet my soon to be longtime positional coach, Dan Orazio, when he calls me in. And I really thought they were calling me in to cut me. Like I as much as I'm positive, I'm also have some realism in me. And he called me in, and my first conversation with him changed my life. He introduced himself to me, and I knew he was a long-standing coach already a legend, coaching for 35, 40 years all over the place at that point. And his first question to me was something that I'd never been posed with when I met someone for the first time that was a coach or an authority figure to me. And that's when he asked me, how good do you want to be? And it was such an empowering question. One, it caught me off guard, but two, all he cared about is, who do I want to become for real? And this is where, when we talk about writing a book, because now I'm a coach, this is where I really learned what a coach really is. And I used to think a coach is there to teach you the sport and to hold you accountable to their standards or the team standards, or to make you what they think they can make you into. And it was in that moment where I realized everything that I was sort of learning my whole life in terms of being determined, being driven. All a coach can do is help you get to where you want to get to. But you have to decide where you want to go. That's why I think motivation is garbage. Because if I am motivating you, it means I'm trying to get you, Justin, to where I want to get you to. But if that's not where you want to go, we're fighting all the way along the way, and you're not meeting my expectations that I want to see of you. Where do you want to see yourself? And you asked that question, how good you want to be. And again, it's a very difficult thing to answer, but what he was reminding me was, I will now do everything in my power to get you there. You got to decide, though. You get to choose. Like, everybody's been growing up telling the coach says I'll be great. Mom and dad said I'll be great. These scouts said I'll be great. What do you want to do? All I'm here to do is help you achieve your goals. You have to make them. I can pose questions to help flesh it out. I can't tell you where you should go. That's got to come from you. And it was that moment where he sort of cemented my already kind of belief in this, but I didn't have it crystallized yet, that you're going to become whatever you decide to become. And then you surround yourself with coaches that will support that mission, not look for a coach to say, coach, where do I got to get to? Coach says, where do you want to go? Okay, I will do everything I can to help get you there. And it was in that moment where I realized I will go as far as I want to go. Now, what athletes need to know is outcomes are never guaranteed. Doesn't mean you're going to make the team. You might want to become this, but at the end of the day, all a goal is trying to do is marshal your energy towards action. So the end goal, as I say this all the time, the end goal for anybody, there's only one end goal: to become your very best. So pick football and say, I want to play a long career. All that's doing is giving you a reason now to bring your effort to training, to film study, to tech, whatever, right? And all those things are doing is giving you another outlet to challenge yourself. Are you bringing your full focus, your full attention, your full energy, your full heart to the actions, which will make you the very best you can at whatever you've chosen to do? And because at the end of that conversation, I remember, Dan, we talked about durability and dependability and the stuff we can talk on. He gave me this one reminder: Angus, you can do all these things. I can't guarantee you'll have a long career. I can't guarantee you'll even make this team, but we want outcomes. If I do this, will I get this? If we do this, will we win the championship? I don't know. That's not what we're really here to do. It's a nice measurement to marshal our energy, to give us focus towards why we're doing things. But I can guarantee you one thing: you will become the very best version of yourself. And what a beautiful thing for a coach to care about more than anything is making you your very best. You might not even make the team, but he will do everything he can to stretch me as far as possible to what I want to become. Is it good enough at the end to make a football team? Who knows? But if you become your very best, how is there better? What is better than that? And what coach can do more than helping you maximize whatever your potential is as a person? Where, some coaches, we did it, we won the game, we won the championship. Were they their very best? Who cares? He cared. And now I've never forgotten that moment of what our real task as a coach is to help people become the very best of wherever they want to go to and be supportive of that in whatever that's going to mean for each person.
Right.
You talk a lot about honesty as a coach, and this just speaks to Coach Dan's integrity and how he exemplified honesty. A lot of coaches, whether they're high school, college, professional, they'll feed you a lot of lines in order to try and get you to where they want to go. And again, I'd be interested to hear a little bit more of Coach Dan's story at another time. But like, he's been doing this for 35 years. He's now your coach. He's probably learned that the hard way in many ways. But to the point of like what really motivates players. But just speak to that little, like, as you're coaching younger men now, and that virtue of honesty, and even just to the coaches out there, like, how important is this? Because it's not just telling players the cold hard facts about where they're at as a player, but like being willing to go into those questions like, who do you want to become? What are your aspirations? And then, hey, here's the thing. This might not mean you get what you want or desire, and that's honesty, but who you're going to become is going to become pretty special in the process.
Yeah, and Coach, let's talk about the one another layer of what you just mentioned in terms of asking those questions to those players. How frequently do you as a coach ask your player, am I doing everything to support you best? What can I be doing better to help you? Like that means I care about you. And so Coach Dan told me two stories. He grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in the 60s and the 70s. Like, well, football was hard and brutal and players got used like crazy and, go win me a game. And he went to Kent State University back when football was brutal. And he told me this great story. He said every job he had growing up as a kid then, and even some of the coaches he had when he was young, he knew and everybody else knew that played for them. All those coaches saw on their forehead was two words: use me. Everybody knew they were getting used. The coach was using you to win a championship, to win a game, to build their ego. They were putting you in positions so they could win their game, and you knew it. But you reaped the benefit of being part of a championship team, but you did what you were told because they needed to win, and they were going to put you here to win. And I never forget, Dan told me, he and I try to remind myself this every time words come out of my mouth and actions come out of my body when I'm with the kids that I'm fortunate enough to coach. He said, Angus, I promised myself when I became a coach, I'd only see two words on everyone's forehead: help me. My job is to help you become whatever you're trying to become. That is such a switch in the way that you go about your coaching. You don't exist for me. I exist for you. I am coaching you. My job is to help you get to where you're trying to get to. Your job is not trying to help me get to where I want to get to. That is using. That's why old school coaches motivate, because I need you to do what I need you to do so I can get what I want to get. I want you to let me know what you need so I can support you getting to where you want to get to. Guess what? You're probably going to get the person's best, and it's more sustainable because you don't have to motivate them every day, because who doesn't love becoming better at what they wanted to become better at? And you find out quickly if it's not right for them what they're doing. Who cares? Your job is to help them become the best version of themselves. It might not work. That's how you build relationships. That's how you build trust. And then when it is time to lay the hammer down and push someone, they know you're doing it because you care this much about them, and you're doing it because this is supportive of them becoming their best. And you spoke about feeding lines. There's another great thing between being a kind coach and being a nice coach. A nice coach tells you what they think you want to hear to get what they need out of you. A kind coach tells you the truth. But a great coach is kind in a very strategic, artful way. Like you said, it's not just about throwing cold, hard facts at you. It's about being honest with you about the realities in a way that this is what you need to hear to help you become better, to help you improve. And that's a gapping difference. Kind is honesty in light of what this is required for you to keep getting better. Nice is, you said, just telling you what I got to tell you to get what I need out of you in this moment, or to make you feel good enough to keep showing up. And, players know that. And unfortunately, you and I know we're all old enough that we grew up where there wasn't a lot of alternatives. That's what it was. And your reward was being on the team. And now, particularly in the amateur sports, unless kids think they're getting $1 million at the end of the day, why are they out here working so hard? They better be here because they believe that this is helping them become a better person. And there's other outlets in the world today. They don't need to play sports in high school. It's hard. It's a lot of work. They're doing it because this is great, because they feel better about who they are. 30 years ago, you don't play sports, you're not a cool kid. You have no chance. They had to, and coaches knew it. Every kid had to play, or else what's the alternative? You get beat up in school. So you're going to put up with whatever they put up with, right? And how bad is that? You look back and go, coach made me do stuff he knew he shouldn't have made me do, but we did it. Now it's like, I'm not going to put you as here. I'll give you one before I ask a question. This is at the pro level. This is how good Dan was about you. Knew he cared about you. This was fascinating. One, he played fullback, so he never played offensive line. So throw out the hole, you have to play it to know it, kind of thing. He coached us, but here's one thing he would say to us, and I respected him to the end of the earth for doing this all the time. We're here to win, pro sports, bottom line. And he would drop plays where there's a certain block we have to do, and maybe it's a higher velocity block where we're pulling it in space. There's a larger run up to impact. Probabilities of collision of concussions increase. Higher collision blocks, shall we say? On paper, play works. This is how we'll win. In reality, he would say this to us as pros. I never forgot this. He goes, guys, this is going to work, but I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what this is doing to you physically to put you in a situation, and I need you to tell me, is it getting too much? And we will not put you in a harmful situation because it works on paper and we'll win. And we can do this 50 times, we'll probably win. I am not risking your health to win. So and he basically said, I don't know because I've never done this. I need to know feedback every day. Is this too much? How many coaches really do it at the highest level? That's a guy you will do more than required for, because they are really caring about you as an individual and reminding you, this will win, but I'm not willing to risk that cost. And I don't know what it is, so I need to know from you. I mean, it's you don't hear much of that.
That's really good. And I'd agree. You don't hear much of that at the highest level, especially. So that's great on honesty and that side. Tell us about the virtue of gratitude. I know that's something you talk about. Why is that so important for success?
Anyone that thinks they're self-made is delusional and arrogant, and I have no time for people like that, because they just don't live in reality. And even from the flip side, any coach that claims they made a player is also delusional and arrogant. Mm-hmm. Every greatness is a communal effort, right? And everyone's bringing their best to the table to create something that was never there before, or to a level that's never been seen before. And if that gets lost, all of this means nothing, because it becomes transactional, selfish. What am I getting out of this? And so to me, it's, again, I think one of the questions you came before is, writing the book. When I first wrote Thank You, when I first sat down to write Thank You, Coach, it was published in 2018, started writing in 2017. I retired in 2014. So I was a few years removed from playing, and I hadn't started coaching yet. We had a newborn. I was sort of wanted to get in the business world. I needed to get away from football, give myself a little distance to make sure it was what I wanted to come back to for the right reasons. And so I first started writing the book because I was speaking about Dan a lot. So my wife's like, well, you got to put this in a book. Like, all these, you're telling these stories, let's put it down. So I first started writing it as a real thank you to him. It was kind of a memoir of memories and compiling it. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to write this as a thank you, I'm going to write this first off as a guide to other coaches. This is the stuff that matters. X's and O's are great, but it's understanding the human side. But then I started writing it, I realized, as a thank you to all the coaches. So forget gratitude just to who's helped you. They're helping you because someone helped them, and they're helping them because there's been a system created that's what we do. We help people because we were all helped. And if we forget that, then everything becomes about how much money can I make out of becoming a coach, or how much money can I make out of training this kid? And we've lost everything. So to me, it's the whole concept of, what are we really trying to do here? What is any sport or any community activity about? It's about supporting each other in moving us as people forward, because someone helped move us forward. And so the book was thanking all the coaches, and in doing so, reminding everybody, someone has helped us enough. Now we have to move forward and help them. So then I get back into coaching because I know it's time and I have to. And really what I ended up writing the book was reminding myself of why you need to do this and what matters most about coaching. And it's not strategy and execution. It's about It's about being someone that is honestly there to support the growth of the next generation because we're only able to because someone did that for us. And I got on my high horse on this, and I get really angry at this, and I apologize if I offend anybody here, but nothing angers me more than somebody that became someone out of the gracious, good, voluntary deeds of someone coaching them when they were young and turn around and now charge youth for that same good fortune that they were bestowed. And someone helped them become something, so then they make a living now off the next group of kids doing what was done for them for free. Because our duty and our responsibility is to pay forward what was given to us. And anyone thinks that they did it alone is lying. And it's arrogant, it's delusional, and it's wrong.
I guess you said you started writing the book as a reminder to yourself in many ways.
That's where it finished. Yeah, that's where it finished. Yeah.
You know, and so and I think anything like that, whether it's like writing a book or a podcast or doing anything like that, it's most powerful when you're trying to give a message. It's better when you've preached it or spoke it to yourself first, because it's coming from the heart. And so, you know, even just doing background on our interview today, I've been coaching for 21 years. And from the outside looking in, and a lot of times if somebody was to ask me about my program, I'd be very confident saying, we've got a good culture. I do care about my players. And the willingness to do the work on yourself as a coach or even as a parent. But you know, listening to your TED Talks, reviewing the book, going through stuff, it's a constant reminder of how there's so many areas I got to keep improving on. In like, it's never something that I'm going to arrive at. It's like, I can always put the player first, and it's really easy to get transactional, even and to lack the self-awareness that you are. And so our audience is a lot of coaches, a lot of parents. What would you say to parents, like just that importance of reminders, working on yourself, being intentional in this area? Because I just find it's crazy easy to be transactional without knowing it, but it's way harder focusing on like what you're focusing on in the book and what Coach Dan was focusing on. I find that way more challenging.
How many coaching conferences do we go to where this is the topic? We're all learning how to coach technique better and strategy and game plan and, you know, situational awareness of the game, not situational awareness of the player. Like we don't dive into it because it's less science and it's more art. And, you know, there is no A plus B always equals C because A and B are always different people and they need different things in different moments. So the awareness is, how do we keep focused on what do they need? What do they need? Not what do I need? And you're right, it's so hard. I sit in on some coaching groups for some high school coaches in the US. And there was one coach that came on, and you talk about taking self-awareness to a next level. I wish I had the courage and ability to do this. He said, look, you know how we film our kids and we break down film and we break down, you know, practice film all the time. He goes, I make sure someone films me every single practice and I review myself.
Every practice.
Well, he goes, we're filming the kids. I got a camera on me too. And he watches the words he says, the reactions he gives, the body language he gives, and he makes his wife watch it with him. And she tears him up. And you want to be honest with yourself. It can be hard. But even thinking about that, if you put that in your head, going cameras on me, even though it's not, it's just how, you know, we're all, I think most of us, I would like to think we all want to do what's right. It's in the moment, we get emotional so how can we constantly do whatever we got to do to pause before the yell and go, what is best for these players right now? And how do I make sure they realize this is for their best? And, you know, I'll give you one thing to paradigm shift. Dan taught me this too. Again, in the moment, really hard. But if you think about it a lot, you might come up with this. Always err on the assumption that your players are trying their hardest.
Yep.
Make them prove otherwise, because I don't know too many young kids that they're not making any money are coming out to be terrible on purpose and want to screw things up and want to look bad and want to make mistakes. I'm going to live with that assumption. I'm going to make a player prove that they're wasting their own free time to come be really bad. So let's go with that assumption. So if we can work with that assumption in practice or in games, if there is an issue that happens, a mistake that's made up, whatever, and our inclination is to point it out right away, to correct the problem, to blame them, or whatever we do that we naturally gravitate to. Dan would always remind me, and I do my very best. I'm not great at this, but I try my best. Let's remind ourselves, if they are trying their best out there, they are not intentionally making a mistake. So somewhere along the line, you have not coached them well enough. If they are doing what they think is right to the best of their ability and it's a problem, you have failed them. You have not coached them well enough. You have not emphasized something well enough. You have not repped it enough, or whatever. Because otherwise, it would mean they know what to do because you've coached them well enough, and they are purposely sabotaging themselves. I'm not going to err on that. I will not believe that unless they have to prove that. So before you go, what are you doing? I bet they think they're doing what's right, or they didn't know. Either way, that's my fault. Either way, that's our fault. And so the other issue is, if you go correct them, you got to get this like this. It's like giving them the finish to a map where you don't know where they are on their journey. I know where I'm at. I know the answer. You don't know where they're still stuck on the problem. And so Dan taught me this too. When there's an issue, my first question tends to be, what are you seeing out there? Because I know what I'm seeing. And so we assume they're seeing what I'm seeing. Like, just do this. It's right there. They might not see that because they're still stuck on not understanding something before that. So they're not at that place yet, mentally, visually, because their brain is still harboring another issue. Right? What are you seeing? And if you haven't built trust, coaches, like, it's not going to matter. So you always have to do the trust and be honesty first, because they're not going to tell you. But if you build trust and you actually let them explain where they're at and what they're seeing, you're like, wow, this is what they're seeing. Okay, like, I can't go here because they're still over here. I need to coach this better. I need to emphasize this better. I need to learn. All I'm trying to learn from my players' answers is, how can I coach better? Not how can I tell them the answer. And then the other classic is this, and I think you guys are probably ahead of this, but some coaches aren't yet. Coach, what do we do here? What do you think? Because what do they think will tell you where they're at in their learning of what you've taught them? Well, this is that. I'm like, wow, so I've really failed you here. Like, somewhere along the line, I just assumed you knew where we were at. I never checked. I never knew. But if I just tell you the answer, again, we've given you the answer without telling you how to do the equation. So they didn't learn anything anyways. And they also learned to come to you with the answers. And what do you think? I don't know. Well, what are you seeing? I need to know what you see to know now where you're at in the journey, so I can go back there and help plot the journey better. And you have to do that calmly, so they actually think you're interested in what they see. If you just give them the answers again, they're scared to make another mistake. They don't want to look bad, or they lean to you for every answer. They've outsourced their learning to you. They don't get better. They don't own their actions. I'm just doing what coach told me to do. And they make another mistake, just do what you told me to do.
That's really good. And that, inside of that is this message of radical self-awareness. Let's call it that, right? As a coach, like it's hard. And I think it's probably why a lot of coaches that just get into coaching, again, they go to a clinic, or they check the box of whatever it is they need to certify themselves in order to coach. And I know it's a volunteer. So there's hours in that. And so they don't do much more. But I think one of the biggest pieces, and perhaps maybe our PSOs, provincial sport organizations or national ones, could start to implement some of this, but it's going, if I'm going to be a coach, Joe Ehrman does this in his book. He writes Inside Out Coaching. He's like, you need to write, like, why do I coach? We talk about that lots in this podcast. It's I think the main one in that whole thing, why do I coach, is so important. You need to know your purpose, but how does it feel to be coached by me?
Yeah.
And it's like, if we don't know what that answer is, we've never taken the time to, then we're just going to keep maybe barking, never asking our own athletes questions, just assuming, maybe looking at them with the sticker on their helmet that says, use me. What a great analogy that is, and visual for me. And so that self-awareness is so key, and love the story about filming himself for every practice. That coach, that is quite a commitment. Every practice,
well, quite a commitment. Every practice he films the kids, he films himself. He goes, why would I hold myself to a lower standard that I'm going to find players at? I mean, that is next level.
And then has his wife review it with him. Like, talk about an ability to gain even more self-awareness, right? It's so she's not going to hold back. She's just like a coach for you. If you're married, your spouse wants you to be the best person you can be.
Well, Justin, imagine if you had your mom come sit at every practice. You probably act a little different. Why? It's like we have subjective okayness. It depends on who's watching you. Right? Like think about that. But if your children watched you every moment, you'd probably behave a little differently. Then you have to ask yourself, why? Why am I different depending on who's watching me? That means I'm not really authentic. I'm situationally, I situationally
lack integrity.
But to coach, Shane, to your point, it's just because we lack the awareness. We don't want to change. We do it because we forget that we can be better than this. But when someone's watching, all that is physical accountability because it's there, like the camera, the person. And so maybe we need to trick ourselves and just be like, mentally visualize the camera's watching at all times. And that's like your reminder before you open your mouth. Camera's watching, even though it's not. Whatever you got to do that pause before reaction so you can choose, not react. And then when you choose, now you're accountable saying, I chose to say stuff that was inappropriate. But when you react, it's like, I wouldn't say that next time. Yeah, you will. You said it this time. Like you have no awareness of what you're doing. So it's whatever's going to force you to go, mom's watching or my wife's watching or my daughter's watching. I can't say this. Why can you say it when she's not there?
Yeah, that's it. Oh man. I've done it myself, videoed myself, or had a GoPro around my neck. And my goodness, it's challenging. I've never heard of somebody doing it every day. And so some of the stuff, and that's one fantastic example. So we have coaches listening to this show. I'm like, okay, I'm motivated. I want to be more intentional with my players. Don't want to be as transactional. I want to care more about who they're becoming and not just trying to get out of them what I want so we can win some games. And just some things that some tidbits I've taken from your books and other podcasts and TED Talks, talking about Coach Dan, how he was focused more on maximizing who you were as a person and that it went beyond football. His focus was on creating a better person and not just a better player. How it was so important for him to connect with you guys as people, as men. And then just some other quotes was, will your interactions impact them beyond the game every day? Coaching is a people business. And just a couple more, like how building trust, like thinking through what does the player value and what makes your players tick, and stop wishing they were something else and start working with what you have. So as a coach who's, they've spent their time listening to this podcast, like they're fired up, they're motivated. They're like, okay, I want to be this. What are some tangible steps, like where to start and think through, okay, because I think a lot of times when we start along this journey, we think it's just going to be this linear, oh, I'm just going to get better at this.
Yeah.
What would you say to that coach that's just starting on this journey to be more intentional?
I think the easiest way is to make sure what matters most is the player, not you. So that kind of frames everything else, right? Like I exist to help them. So what am I trying to help them do? In the short term, get better at sport to win a game. But in the long term, using sport to help them become a better human being. So that's got to be the meta version of like all we're trying to do. So to me, if a coach thinks I am always coaching life here, every time I'm coaching sport. So we're coaching how to problem solve, work together, take feedback, improve. What is the best way I can use language, actions, interact, whatever, to help you learn how to learn, to help you learn how to compete with yourself, to help you learn how to take feedback and work with it. So you're always trying to do this. I can give you some tangibles that I think are helpful. Everyone's got to come up their own way. One is, remember this too, Dan, there's a quote in the book that Dan would tell us at the beginning of every training camp. I will treat you all fairly, but I will not treat you all the same, because you're not all the same. And to do that would be unfair. So again, here's the next point. Everyone's an individual. You have to get them, know them as individuals. Do not treat all your players the same. So again, your job is to adapt to their needs, not force them to adapt to you. Especially if you're coaching teenagers. They will turn you out in a heartbeat. You're better than them and you don't care about them because you don't. Because you're not interested in what they need. You're trying to get them to do what you need. You better be paying them a lot of money if you're doing that, because that is transactional, and transactions should come with fee. Okay. You're asking them to commit to something because it's great. So a couple things that I try to do once you build trust and get to know players, you try to flesh out what are you trying to get out of this? And they'll be sheepish and they probably won't want to answer because you're intimidating. So that takes a while for them to trust you. And they might not know. So how can you nudge them in the direction of what are we really doing here? I don't know. My friends play. Fair. What do you want to get out of life? And you can back into why football or hockey or whatever can support that, or why are they doing this? So they have a reason. Okay. So now my job is to whatever they get excited about the reason, how often can I remind them of their reason so they remind themselves why I'm doing this, or else it just becomes hard and tiresome and boring. And then to me, it's what do you respond best to in terms of teaching and coaching? Some guys like, look, I love high energy. I don't like getting yelled at. I don't like getting publicly picked out. I don't even like getting publicly praised. Whatever you can mine in terms of what do they like to get excited? What are they terrified of? What motivates them? Or sorry, not motivate. What gives them energy? What shrinks them? And everyone's going to give different answers. Now, you want to show you care? Make note of them and actually act on those. So, some kid needs more energy. Some kid needs quieter talking. Someone responds a little better to visual. Some people respond a little better to written handouts. You start feeding them what they like to eat, they'll eat more. Okay. That's kind of like number one. You don't know how they like the food cooked and you cook it wrong. Say that's how I like to cook it. They're not going to eat it, or they'll eat it begrudgingly and they won't like the food. You want them to like the food. So they'll keep eating. So serve it how they like. And so here's another good one. Once you build a bit of trust, what is one thing you wished I knew about you that if I knew it would help me coach you better? Once you build trust, you're going to get amazing responses from kids. My dad hasn't worked in months. I have to pick up a shift in the evening. Sure, I just thought you weren't doing the film work because you were lazy. I had no idea. They humanized you. These kids all are dealing with stuff you'll never know anything about, but they might give you some insight if you actually ask and actually care. And now you're like, wow, I had assumptions because I didn't know. So I just thought you didn't care. I had no idea this was going on. Wow. And then you can check in on it. How are things at home? Don't want to overstep boundaries, but you doing okay. You care about me. Maybe I'll care more back, right? Now it becomes a human interaction, like Coach Joe would always talk about in his book, right? It's about supporting people because someone supported us. And then what I do with, with my kids I'm coaching, now to grade 11, grade 12, the odd one is going to be a prospect that could probably go on and play college ball, right? We have them. I have sits down with them. I want to know, before I tell them what I think they could do, what do you want to do? It doesn't matter what I want them to do. And then they could lean on me going, Coach, what do you think? I said, look, I think you can play, but it doesn't mean I think you should. Like, that's two different things here. What do you want to do? And they'll be like, well, I really want to go to college. I don't know if I can make it. Look, you can make it, but I can't be the one that wants you to go. I can't tell you to do it. I can give you confidence that you can. Is this what you want? Yes. How can I best help? And you get these guys that, I've been coaching for 2-3 years and I've had it. It's a fascinating thing when they're like, can you coach me harder now? Yep. No problem. You're inviting me to and everyone's different, right? So 11th grade, this kid just wants to play football for fun. This kid wants to go to college. They're getting different coach from me, not different effort from me. They're getting my best to support them on their journey. It's just amateur sports. One kid just wants to play well. I'm making sure that they're getting everything they can of the experience and performing at a level that works. This kid wants to go to the next level. It's getting different attention because that's what they need and want. So I'm going to give it to them. And to me, I feel good about it because I have to keep reminding myself I'm not using them. I hope at very least they're using me, or I hope at very least we're on a journey together and everyone's getting to where they want to get to, and I'm able to help. I always call myself a tactful cheerleader. I'm a cheerleader that has enough insights and enough trust in them that I can say a few words that encourage them along their way and can kick them in the butt when needed. And they know when that kick happens, it's because I care enough about helping them get to where they got to get to. And I don't do it right all the time, but nobody does. But I think if you keep reminding yourself of your why or your reason, it's about them. It's always about them. You'll probably make less mistakes. Our goal is always in life is not none of us are going to become great. Can we become less bad? Can we make less dumb things? Can we make less, So coaching, here's a good one. When I first came on board with the staff here, we're a public school and a lot of the staff would still use language and stuff. I'm like, I wouldn't want my kids to. That's football, right? I'm like, but I didn't want to come in and tell people how they should do things. So here's a pretty tricky one. It works well. If you're of authority and people respected me because I was pro athlete, I know what I'm talking about, but these guys have been coaching here longer. So I'm kind of a new guy in the world, but I'm Mr. Football to them, right? So this is a nice way to do it, I think, and it works with the kids too. I'd call the coaches and say, listen, coaches, I need your help. I really, really want your help. We talk about accountability and awareness. It's not filming. I said, guys, I don't want to say inappropriate words to the kids. I don't want to say things that I wouldn't want to say, but sometimes you forget, I need your help. Can you please call me out personally, privately, immediately to help me stop saying, because I really don't want to, and I need your help in doing so. I want to be better. I want to be really good with my language. I don't want to say things I don't really mean. And in heat of the moment, can you do that? Yeah, coach, we can do that. And guess what they asked me to do? Yeah, that's good. Can you do that for me too?
Same thing.
Because if I ask you to help me get to a standard, it makes it easy for them to be like, well, we should do that. Instead of saying, I'm going to hold you to a standard. No, please help me. I want to be better. And you do that to kids too. Kids, please, I don't want to say anything inappropriate to you guys. If I ever do, let me know right away. Because sometimes I don't know what I'm saying because I get all excited. The second it's inappropriate, please let me know. Because I might not be aware. And the kids are, wow, you care that much? They become a little more aware too.
Yeah. It expands your circle of people helping you with your self-awareness and your own growth on how good you want to be in the person.
Absolutely.
This has been great. And I think just learning, about your story, Angus, and then thank you, coach, and the inspiration to write it, but how it started to how it ended. And yet at the same time, as you've dove back into coaching yourself and began to work with teens, and you have a couple boys yourself. Maybe they're not teens yet, but you have some kids
Water
coming
boys
along.
right now. It's the best way to run. But you know what? It's funny.
Water boys.
I'm looking at them going, that was me. They're at the field every day. They're water boys. Their heroes are these teenage kids. And it's great for these teenage kids. They come over and work out at my house, and they get to start passing it on now too. They get to be a good role model for my boys. It's an amazing thing when we get to do this in this amateur sports world.
Yeah. And I think it's maybe led to the passion. I just want to spend a few minutes before we close our time together, but you're currently writing the book Teenager. Can you tell our listeners about Teenager and why you're passionate about it right now and what you want people to know?
Sure. Well, I spent most of my time playing. We used to speak a lot in high schools and schools, and I can't do it anymore. I just can't manage traveling to schools. So on the one hand, I have two young boys now that are growing up, and I work with teenagers. And so I started reflecting on things that we spoke about at the beginning of this podcast, like how I was able to sort of navigate uncertainty at a teenage year, lost, no confidence, not knowing where I fit in, didn't think I could do anything, and how I sort of stumbled my way forward, not as intentional as I wished, because I didn't know. You just sort of do things and look back, go, wow, that stuff really worked, and this stuff didn't. And so I used to speak a lot on it, and I'm like, well, how can I put this together? Because I can't spend my life speaking anymore to teenagers. How can I do this so I could be supportive of so many thousands, if not millions, of our youngsters that, I'm not talking to the elite high performance athletes right now, but some of them too. I mean, they have anxiety and issues and worries, but people that just don't think they have a chance out now in life, and they don't believe in themselves, and they don't think they're worth anything. And they start giving up before they even started, because they might not be fortunate to have a support system at home, or someone that understands that they need someone to believe in them until they learn to believe in themselves. And so I thought I could write something that is ideally in their language about my growing up, and sort of those macro universal lessons, which have practical applications that can sort of challenge you to think through things you can actually do no matter where you are, what you have, to give yourself a better chance to believe, to have courage, to surround yourself with people that are going to be supportive, to help navigate our kids through a really scary world. I mean, we don't know where the world's headed. It's changing every day, but universal principles will always be the same in terms of having courage and belief in yourself to navigate those things, and doing things that give you a better chance than a worse chance at becoming someone that you're proud enough to face the world saying, I am who I am. And if I make myself my best, it's going to be fine. I can go do things, and I can become what I'm willing to put my work into. And so that sort of, I wanted to do something that my boys will have, because they're not going to listen to dad, but maybe one day if there's a book, they think that's cool. And all the kids that I'll never have a chance to meet because of geographic realities, maybe I can find a way to help, but more than that, just be a supportive friend when they might not have one that they can lean on again and again to remind themselves, you're worth it. Your life's worth it, and we need you. We need you, and we need your best. So why not?
It's awesome. I love that mission in it. When do we expect a release date for the new book? Do we know it all yet?
Yeah, I'm going to probably say spring, just by terms of logistics and everything, getting everything finished.
All right. Well, Angus, really appreciated you coming on. This is fantastic. And doing this podcast is a little bit of a selfish endeavor for me, is getting to talk to people like you that inspire me and help me want to be a better coach. And you've given me I got some things to do right after this podcast today. I got to reach out to some of my guys and get ready for practice. But and some intentional things I got to do. So thank you for that, and thank you for spreading the message that you're spreading and doing what you're doing.
Thank you, guys. It's always an honor to be on and to be asked. And listen, the more we all talk, the more we all get better. And these things are our reminders, right? The more we talk about things, the more it's in our head, the more we'll probably act better. So again, thank you for allowing me on. Keep doing all the great stuff out there, guys. We need more of this.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Grit and Growth Podcast. We hope that you enjoyed today's guest and the answers that they were able to give and the stories they were able to tell. If you did enjoy today's episode, we'd ask that you would just follow or subscribe to our podcast. It does help us get the word out in our message. Thanks again. Have a great day.